Okay, everyone. Today we're watching The Left is Violent, Change My Mind. Steven Crowder. His infamous format. By the way, all the statistics say that the left is not more violent. It's like 85% of the political violence comes from right-leaning people or white supremacy groups that are right-leaning. But let's watch this. Let's see what he says. Because this format changed my mind. The implication is that he wants to sit down and have a real conversation, just like Charlie Kirk did. But what this is it's not a conversation. It's gotcha journalism. He won't change his mind. He has the perspective that he believes in fully, and all this does is show his followers. Look at these crazy leftists. Look at these blue-haired liberals. They're unable to have conversations. They're unable to talk and use facts. So let's use some facts here. By the way, I want to say this real quick. It's Rich when he says the left is violent. When Steven Crowder himself recently faced serious allegations of emotional and mental abuse. I have my notes here. Steven Crowder faced serious allegations of emotional and mental abuse from his ex-wife, Hillary Crowder. In April 2023, journalist Yashar Ali released a video showing Crowder berating Hillary when she was 8 months pregnant, demanding she perform wifely duties and give their dogs medication she believed was unsafe for pregnant women. Now, let me tell you something, okay? I have a husky right now. She's currently taking medication because she keeps biting her paws. On the bottle, it says that when handling the medication, a person should wear gloves because the actual residue could cause irritation. It's potentially a little bit toxic. That's important because this is the guy that is saying that the left is violent, and meanwhile he's berating his pregnant wife. Because we all know, by the way, Christians and the far right believe that the wife should submit, that they're not people, that their job is to submit to the husband. Hillary's family later released a statement claiming she had endured years of emotionally abusive behavior and kept it hidden to protect their marriage and children. I actually believe that. If you look at any of his content, you can kind of see that this guy's kind of crazy. He's a bit unhinged. Just a bit. I'm not saying you can judge someone's character based on their content, but you can get a bit of an insight on who they are. So yeah, the left is violent. Meanwhile, he was abusive to his pregnant wife. Awesome. Great job, Crowder. So fucking great. You're so much better than the left.
I don't think you would argue that this is unnecessary.
Well, the left is not more violent statistically, by the way. It's not. The numbers don't lie.
The assassination in cold blood is an act of terrorism of Charlie Kirk. Is that political violence?
These people weren't. We're gonna watch this, by the way. I'm gonna skip ahead of this to the actual conversation. I wish people would just admit on the left that it is political violence. There's no way around it. It's sad that he's dead. Okay, I was saddened by it. I was moved by it. I posted about it. But we can also recognize that Kirk's views were inflammatory and bigoted and not really grounded in any reality, which is par for the course when it comes to conservatives. They don't really live in reality. They don't live in facts. They just cherry pick things that support their arguments. All right.
First, I'll tell you what it's not. It's not gotcha. It's not clickbait. This literally brought an army with me and bulletproofed the entire radius, which is exactly what we did.
So strong.
And so today, for the first time in many years, Change My Mind returns, and back to one of the...
I'm going to say something. If I ever get big enough like him, and I do shit like this, like I go to a campus or I go to like a public area and have a conversation with someone, I don't think I'm going to say this now because this is my own words. I'm not going to bring security. What he's doing right now, totally normal response because Charlie Kirk was just murdered, right? What he's doing right now is he's adding fuel to the fire, to this myth that the left is violent. So now that every right-leaning personality has to go in public with security and bulletproof glass. I'm not going to be a pussy. If I ever get big enough and I do shit like this, like these forums, I'll just go. I don't fucking need security. Fuck it. I mean, like why would I add to that? You know what I mean? That's what's happening here. This need to bulletproof everything is actually kind of funny because they're the party of like the Second Amendment and guns are awesome and they glorify state militias and they love Kyle Rittenhouse, and yet he's walking around with an army, his own words, and bulletproof glass. Awesome. And a vest, by the way. I think he's wearing a vest too.
Places where it all began. Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas. Today's subject is plain and simple: the left is violent. Will anybody be able to?
Why can't he go to like a? I'm not saying that Southern Methodist is not a good school, but why can't you go to like Yale or Harvard? Like why can't he talk to like a PhD in political science or like all he's doing is he's going to these schools. He's talking like freshmen and sophomores who don't really know anything, or faculty who no offense to a lot of faculty, but they don't know fucking jack shit. Why can't he go to like an Ivy League or a famous research institution and talk to, I don't know, a PhD or a PhD candidate or someone who's about to defend their thesis in a similar topic? Like, why not? Why not talk to somebody that has a little bit more experience in these subjects, not just someone that's trying to extrapolate ideas out of thin air because they're emotionally invested about the subject? That's what I never get about these conservatives. I'll never understand when they try to punch down like this. They act like they're the ones that are trying to have conversations. They're the ones that are trying to find middle ground.
Change my mind.
Something more than it was.
Amen.
Thank you, Christina, for sitting down.
One more time.
Stephen.
Yes. Okay.
So I'll take that. I mean, you're not maybe super familiar with what we do with these this series. Let me just kind of clarify what it is. First, I'll tell you what it's not. It's not gotcha. It's not clickbait. This is not meant to be, or it won't be used to clip into some kind of a dunk or something to just foment people espousing the same.
The beginning of this video was literally part of this conversation with this person, black and white, and asking, is that not political violence? And she's like, that's literally a dunk. He's trying to expose how they are hypocritical. It is gotcha. That's exactly what this format is. It's a game. It's something for him to make money. This is his bread and butter. The whole change my mind is such an infamous format. He started this thing. This is his thing. So yes, it is a gotcha. It's a dunk. That's why he started this video with a black and white footage of this exact conversation, trying to catch this person in a lie or catch them unable to admit that the assassination of Charlie Kirk was political. It is, by the way. But this is exactly what he's doing. He has no credibility.
Rhetoric on one side. It will be uploaded contextually in its entirety, where hopefully we have a productive discussion.
Yes.
We rationalize our positions, reason them on controversial topics. Before I get to the premise of today, could you do me a favor just so we can find some common ground?
Yeah.
This is what's being cited right now quite a bit. Just the definition of political violence. I want to make sure we both agree on it.
Political violence are criminal complaints, indictments, and court records looking for crimes that seek a socio-political change or to communicate to outside audience.
And I'll summarize it. That's the technical description from the source cited.
Yeah.
It's or something to just foment people espousing the same rhetoric on one side. It will be uploaded contextually in its entirety, where hopefully we have a productive discussion.
Yes.
We rationalize our positions, reason them on controversial topics. Before I get to the premise of today, could you do me a favor just so we can find some common ground?
Yeah.
This is what's being cited right now quite a bit. Just the definition of political violence. I want to make sure we both agree on it.
Political violence are criminal complaints, indictments, and court records looking for crimes that seek a socio-political.
Okay, that is not a definition. That highlighted sentence is a description of a project that the prosecution project led by the University of Cincinnati. Okay, that is not a definition. It is a description of what their project is examining. Okay. I'm gonna look it up right now. Okay, I'm gonna do this. This is easy. This is all you have to do. Okay. This is very important, by the way. This article actually goes into a very deep definition of what political violence is. Okay, and it also shows that most of the actual violence comes from far right groups. But let's define political violence. Okay, easy. Okay. By the way, you can trust Wikipedia. They lock down their pages. They have fact checkers. They have people that work tirelessly to actually update these articles with as much accuracy as they can. The days of like editing pages of Wikipedia and doing shit like that are over. Like they've since locked it down. So you can trust Wikipedia. Now, I'm not saying you can trust it in a research assignment, but when you're day to day having conversations with people like Crowder, you can trust it. Political violence is violence which is perpetrated in order to achieve political goals. It can include violence which is used by state against other states, war. Violence is used by a state against civilians, non-state actors, forced experience, psychological warfare, police brutality, targeted killings, torture, ethnic cleansing, and genocide, and violence which is used by violent non-state actors against state civilians, kidnapping, assassination, terror, torture, psychological, and/or guerrilla warfare. Okay, it can also describe politically motivated violence which is used by violent non-state actors against state, rebellion, rioting, treason, coup d'état, or it can describe violence which is used against other non-state actors or civilians. Okay, that's exactly what is happening here. That is the definition of political violence. That is a very broad definition that covers every single area. Okay, what Crowder is showing her here, this person, okay, is not a definition, but just a description of the scope of a project. And by the way, The Economist, I wouldn't exactly go to them for everything. They're not exactly the most unbiased source out there. They're pretty right leaning, right? Which is why he always uses them. That's not a definition. That's just a description of a project.
Change or to communicate to outside.
If you're going to start throwing definitions around, use a dictionary. Go on Wikipedia. Use an encyclopedia. Okay, a physical one, or go to the Encyclopedia Britannica, right? Use that. But don't start using The Economist. That's not where definitions are from. Come on. If you're going to use a source, use a real source, not a publication that you trust and that you're a fan of, because that's not unbiased reporting. It's not.
Audience.
And I'll summarize it. That's the technical description from the source cited.
Yeah.
It's violence as a tool being used toward a political end. In other words, just because you vote Democrat or because you vote Republican, if you accidentally hit someone with your car and commit manslaughter, that's not political violence. If you vote Democrat, but let's say you go out and run someone over because of their politics, that would be political. Do we agree on that?
I think I can agree with you on that.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, that's kind of a he doesn't. You don't get brownie points for making a ridiculous distinction. I don't think any reasonable person says, if I go out and vote Democrat and I run somebody over with my car and they happen to vote Republican, but I didn't know that, that's not political violence. Well, obviously, no, that's not why we have such a focus on this conversation regarding political violence. No one's making that distinction because that's ridiculous. Obviously, that's not what it is. Why does he do that? Why does he reduce a very, very complex topic to such a ridiculous, preschool level of understanding? Is it because he has the mind of a preschooler? Is it because Crowder himself is unable to form complex opinions and think critically? I think that's what it is. That's my assumption. That's my conclusion. Take that, for what you will.
Good. So the premise today is that, particularly today in 2025, by and large, the political violence is coming from the left. It's not proportionate with that on the right. That's the reason for the security that you see today that's very necessary. And it's a problem that's reaching a boiling point that may not be sustainable. If you disagree with me, you're welcome to change my mind.
I don't know.
You can't change his mind, okay? Because the temperature has been turned up by conservatives ever since Trump first ran for office in 2016, okay? Ever since that first campaign season, the temperature has been turning up. The numbers don't lie, okay? The ADL and the Center for Strategic and International Studies both agree that the vast majority of political killings in the U.S., and I have notes here, okay, come from far-right extremists. It's not from the left, okay? I'm gonna pull up that PBS article, okay? Here it is, okay? Here we go. Patterns, incidents, and fatalities. Here we go. Based on government and independent analysis, right-wing, you can go to this article. They link everything, every source they have, every study they have. Right-wing extremist violence has been responsible for the overwhelming majority of fatalities, accounting to approximately 75 to 80% of U.S. domestic terrorist deaths since 2001. Its illustrated cases include the 2015 Charleston church shooting, when white supremacist Dylan Roof killed 9 black parishioners. The 2018 Tree of Life synagogue attack in Pittsburgh, where 11 worshipers were murdered. 2019 El Paso Walmart massacre, in which anti-immigrant gunmen killed 23 people. 2019. What was happening in 2019? Trump was president. His administration, as they do currently in 2025, were railing against immigrants, saying that we had a problem at the border. Before Trump became president, I remember hears of, what was it, like death caravans. This is like in 2012. Remember that? Death caravan 2012. Didn't they say that? What do they say? Hold on. I'm going to look this up. Sarah Palin, Caravans, 2012 quote. Was it Palin for that? I could have sworn Fox News said that shit too. Okay, hold on. Fox News. Sarah Palin did talk about death panels, but that was something different. Fox News, migrant caravans. They still talk about that now. Caravan of 1,500 migrants. This all they've done is here we go. New migrant caravan. All they've done is create fear around immigrants, people from south of the border. That's all they've done. All they've done is turn up the temperature significantly on that subject, to the point where we have a shooting at a Walmart in El Paso. Okay, where's that from? Yeah. 23 people, anti-immigrant. Who is famously anti-immigrant? Trump and his people, his administration, conservatives in general. They also cite the Oklahoma City bombing, which is a notable example of that. When it comes to violence at a mass scale especially, it's always conservatives. It's always far-right extremists. Leftist violence typically, as you can see here, comes in the form of like eco-terrorism, the Animal Liberation Front and the Earth Liberation Front, arson and vandalism campaigns in 1990s and 2000s, okay? Which typically, I'm not saying it's right, but typically target property. You want to cite leftist violence? Violence occurred during the San May Day protests in 2016 when anarchist groups and other demonstrators clashed with police. The clashes resulted in multiple injuries and arrests. And in 2016, 5 Dallas police officers were murdered by a heavily armed sniper who was targeting white police officers. It does happen. But to say that the left is more violent, the numbers don't justify it. They don't. And if you want to be Steven Crowder, you want to be this crowd that's facts don't care about your feelings, like Ben Shapiro said, then you have to be able to live in reality. You have to be able to report on the facts accurately. Also, there is a reason why it's hard to count violence, not just for one side or the other, but for both sides. It's because we don't, as a country, we don't focus on designated domestic groups as terrorist organizations. We don't have a statute that says that. We rely on existing statutes like conspiracy, weapons violations, RICO provisions, and hate crime laws. We don't have a mechanism to designate a domestic group as a terrorist organization. We don't do that. We only focus, the State Department only focuses on foreign groups. Okay, it matters. But even with that, our inability to properly, in the eyes of the law, designate a domestic group as a terrorist organization, we are still seeing in the numbers that the violence comes from the far right significantly more. Also, rhetoric is not necessarily violent. Okay? Right-wing extremist violence has been more frequent and more lethal than left-wing. The number of extremist groups is substantial and skewed towards the right, although the count of organizations does not necessarily reflect incidents of violence. High-profile political violence brings heightened rhetoric and pressure for sweeping responses, yet the empirical record shows that the political violence remains concentrated within specific movements and networks rather than spread evenly across the ideological spectrum. Distinguishing between rhetoric and evidence is essential for democracy, okay? You can't just say every time the left says something that you don't like, well, that rhetoric doesn't necessarily mean it's violent. You just don't like it. There's a difference. The free speech crowd, right, the right, they always champion themselves as bastions of free speech. They're the ones that complain all the time about violent rhetoric, and yet they're the ones that carry out the most violence. And the numbers support it. It's right here. What about when Trump, and this is what I'm talking about. I'm not the only one, by the way, that's talked about Trump and the administration in general turning down the temperature. Right here, Trump and members of his administration are threatening to target whole organizations and movements and the people who work in them with aggressive legal measures, to jail them or scrutinize their favorable tax status. But research shows that the majority of political violence comes from following right-wing ideologies. They're the ones that won't turn down the temperature. They refuse. I can't believe that you can live in this reality, Stephen, where you genuinely believe that the left is more violent, and all the numbers, all the evidence hilariously destroys your claims.
don't know if I can change your mind, because here's the thing. When I see the sign that says the left is violent, and you talked about how it's not proportional, and I would love to see your statistics about that, because we could make the same statement about the right very easily, right? Like, we could say that was it just a month or two ago that the Democratic lawmakers were shot, and that was like, all right. I think our bigger problem is that the
Talk about the Hortmans in Minnesota, right?
Right, yeah, because she was a senator, and her husband was also killed, and that was done by the right, whatever. But
it wasn't. But continue.
Oh, that wasn't a. No, it wasn't a.
I'm going to show you guys how easy it is to use the internet, and I'm not trying to be condescending, okay? Just play along with me, okay? Let's look at what was the Hortman, right? Assassination politically motivated. Let's look at PBS, okay? PBS has been a trusted institution for a long time, okay? Hundreds of law officers feigned out across the Minneapolis suburbs Saturday in pursuit of a man with authorities say posed as a police officer and fatally shot a Democratic state lawmaker in her home. Authorities said the suspect also shot and wounded a second lawmaker and was believed to trying to flee the area. Okay. Do we have the actual manifesto? He had hold on a second. I'm gonna I just want to see it. I'll find it. Here we go. Victims accused, early life, careers. Here we go. What's the motive? Here we go. Here we go. Again, you can trust Wikipedia. For the most part, they're really good about citing their sources, providing definitions for everything. I mean, they're great. I don't know why people shit on them, but it's my guess is conservatives have a problem with knowledge. They don't understand that it's okay to learn things because they want their followers to be dumb and uneducated because it's easier to control them. That's why. But let's watch this, okay? Federal charging documents describe Bolter, the shooter, as acting with the intent to kill, injure, harass, and intimidate Minnesota legislators. His anti-abortion views are a possible motive. Wow, anti-abortion. What side in America is famously anti-abortion? Is it the left? No, it's the fucking right. Okay? Bolter was registered to vote in Oklahoma as a Republican for the 2004 presidential election. Okay? Wow, registered a Republican in 2004 during the Bush administration and the invasion of Iraq and like the height of the start of the global war on terror, right? Because 9/11 happened, we decided to go towards the Middle East to kick some ass on claims of WMDs and ridiculous bullshit like that, right? Although on his state document 29, he wrote that he had no party preference, whatever. He was a registered Republican. That matters. A longtime Sleepy Eye, Minnesota resident who knew Bolter was a fourth grade student in his childhood town in 76 told reporters he was stunned to learn that Bolter was in the attacks. Everyone's always surprised. I never saw it coming. Come on. He described Bolter as conservative who voted for President Donald Trump and was strongly against abortion rights. Wow. His own people, his own friends, people that knew him. Oh, that guy was conservative, 100%. Anti-abortion, loved Trump, got him. Bolter's having financial problems and starting to find work, adding that he was looking, but immediately gave up and decided to go out in a blaze of glory. Yikes. Saying there was a darkness inside of him. That's not leftist violence. That's conservatism right there. Bolter's wife told investigators that their family prepared for major and catastrophic incidents, and that after the shootings, he warned her by text message that they should prepare for war. They need to get out of the house, and people with guns may be showing up to the house. Oh my god, dude. Oh my fucking god. You gotta be kidding me. Yeah, but the left is more violent. As here's an act of political violence from a right-leaning person. Registered Republican. An unmarked black fifth-generation Ford Explorer equipped with an orange-white LED headbar was left in the Hortman's driveway and contained a list of about 70 potential targets, including abortion providers, pro-abortion rights lawmakers in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and other states. Hortman and Hoffman were on the list, as were Waltz, Angie Craig, Ilan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Mark Pokin, Gwen Moore, Kelly Morrison, and Hillary Schulten. U.S. Senators Amy Klobuchar, Tina Smith, and Ted Butler, and Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison. Oh, they worked there too. Okay. On the day of the shooting, both sex friends. I love you guys. I made some choices, and you guys don't know anything about this, but I'm going to be gone for a while. I'm going to be dead shortly. Yikes. Also in his car was the stacks of No Kings protest to be held on the day of the shooting. Police said they believe Bolter may have intended to target protests and spark king cancellations. Okay, so right there, clear fucking motive. All of the evidence suggests, nay, directly says that this was an act of far-right extremist violence. And yet Crowder, or anyone else on the right, they were unable to condemn it. They were unable to admit that it came from someone on their own side. This is the party where they can't even hold their own people accountable. It's absolutely pathetic. All right.
Conservative.
No, that's why I use the example that I did. The person, Vance Bolter, who committed it, specifically said it had nothing to do with politics, and he left a letter reasoning it, saying that Tim Walz had ordered him to carry a hit out on people.
It had everything to do with politics. He was famously anti-abortion, and he wanted to go after people that had those views. That's political. That's as political as it gets. When abortion is the hottest topic that the far right loves to rail against, they take comfort in stripping away rights from women. Meanwhile, you got Herschel Walker, who's like driving his side piece or whatever to get an abortion, right? Like it's hypocritical. They don't want you to have a right to choose, but they want to take it from you so that they can do it themselves if they need it. They don't want you to have it, but they can. Politically motivated violence.
So he was very clear that it wasn't in the name of politics. That's someone who happened to be, on some issues, Republican, on some issues, Democrat. And he was appointed by a Tim Walz administration. So.
Whoa there, horsey. Whoa there, Nelly. Hold on a second. I want to see something here. I want to say something. Yeah. Governor Walz, especially Klobuchar, who allowed Walz to run for Senate seat. The letter was left in the car, bolted, deserted near his house, long confession of the shooting. Yeah, I mean, it is incoherent and conspiratorial. There's no evidence to suggest that Walz was involved. Like, what the fuck? My God. This is crazy. This is crazy. I don't know how Crowder can sit there and have this moral high ground and genuinely blame the left and say the left is more violent when it's obvious. This guy, here we go, right-wing misinformation. I love it. It's so easy to fact check this stuff. It's so easy. Many prominent right-wing and far-right figures falsely claimed that the suspect Vance Bolter was left-wing, a Democrat and ally of Governor Tim Walz. Elon Musk shared tweets. Elon Musk, oh God, he's such a fucking dumbass. This guy, he sits there and he pretends that he's like Tony Stark, right? He's this genius inventor. Meanwhile, he didn't invent anything. He didn't invent Tesla. He bought the company. He didn't invent Twitter. He bought it and ran it to the ground. The fraud is murderously violent. I love it. The U.S. Senator Mike Lee tweeted multiple times that the suspect was a Marxist. Conservatives love this because they know their own followers, their own voters. They know they don't actually know what Marxism actually is. So they'll say Marxist, he's a socialist, Marxist, whatever. And their fucking Fox News viewers, their fans or followers, they get so rabid at the mouth when they hear those words. Oh, he's a Marxist communist. He doesn't even know what that word means. Donald Trump Jr. became suspect seemed to be a leftist and was a Democrat. Nope. U.S. Senator Bernie Moreno and U.S. Representative Derek Van Orden both said the shooter was far left extremist. Nope. Large right-wing social media accounts began spreading similar misinformation. Right-wing commentator Mike Cernovich. Oh my God, Mike is such a dumbass too. Holy shit. I'm always calling him out on shit, by the way, all the time. Back when I had a Twitter account, I was always ripping him a new one. Essentially, Walz had ordered assassinations. Laura Loomer, called Bolter one of Walz's goons and called for Walz to be detained and interrogated. What? Benny Johnson, of course. It's like the fucking Avengers of the worst people on the far right. It's like the super team of the dumbest motherfuckers on the far right. Benny Johnson claimed the suspect was a Tim Walz associate. Other posts falsely claimed that the photo of the man was at a no case resident was that of the suspect. Okay, more false reports. They love just spreading misinformation. The Guardian called this the latest example of a right-wing media ecosystem that swiftly spins up its airs and serves the political agendas after. Yeah. Okay. I want you to look at the sentence right here, okay? The Guardian called this the latest example of a right-wing media ecosystem that swiftly spins up narratives that serve their political agendas after tragic events, regardless of accuracy, and does not correct them after further information shows them to be untrue or incomplete. This right here is exactly the thing that Jimmy Kimmel talked about, that he got suspended for, and it is the epitome of my problem with the Charlie Kirk memorial service that they held, that big stadium event that they had, okay? All the right-wing media ecosystem cares about is doing everything they can to take a narrative to further their own political agenda and their goals. They don't care if it's accurate. They don't care if it can be debunked in 5 seconds. They don't care if it makes them look bad. Their followers don't care, and they don't care. All they do is they thrive on misinformation, and they love using tragedies to further their own goals. This whole Charlie Kirk backlash on their side, it was to further their own political agenda. It had nothing to do with free speech or Charlie Kirk getting murdered. It was all to push their agenda. And if you don't believe me, they did it here with Melissa Hortman. All right, let's keep on.
That was not done in the name of political violence. He said Tim Walz ordered him to assassinate somebody who was out of his mind. But I'd like you to continue with the example.
Sure. And let's say, okay, so he wasn't.
So you don't miss anything. All right.
Right, that's fine.
No, it wasn't political violence.
It wasn't political. Oh, it didn't count as political violence.
Based on the definition you agreed to, right?
Yeah. And I think a lot of it too is there's so many things happening. It's actually really hard to get all the facts about everything.
Sure.
And our media is when they make these statements or they start to postulate about an event, and it will become political before we've even fully fleshed everything out, like.
Can you give me an example?
Well, like the shooting that happened at the church yesterday, I haven't seen enough. I don't know. Have you seen any media on it yet? I'm curious to know what the media is saying
quite a bit
about it, and I want to know how are they characterizing it?
Yeah, the media isn't characterizing. Even I will say this, even on the left and the right, they're not really characterizing that as political violence.
Okay.
Because it was a guy who really seemed to harbor ill will toward the Mormon Church. So it's pretty hard to categorize it as political violence when the targets were largely conservative and the man who carried out the action seems like he might be a Republican. But I think we could pick a more clear example.
Whoa.
A multitude of them.
Whoa. Hold on a second. How is it hard to categorize that as political violence when he literally just said the targets seem to be conservatives and the shooter seemed to be Republican? That's still political violence. There's an example of a radicalized, angry, lonely, unstable conservative attacking people. That's an example of political violence. How is that any different? If the targets were largely conservative and the shooter was Republican, isn't that proof that maybe the people on your side have issues? They're angry. They're mentally unstable. They don't feel connected to society. They're trying to find some way to fill this void that they have. You can't use it. I love how he pivots. Well, we really can't talk about that. I mean, the shooter was Republican. Let's just move on, because it deflates his entire argument. He doesn't live in reality. He lives in cherry-picked facts.
The reason we're here, and I don't think you would argue that this is unnecessary, the assassination in cold blood is an act of terrorism of Charlie Kirk. Is that political violence? You seem so confident on the Hortmans, but not Charlie Kirk.
I would say, I was just
confident on Charlie Kirk, but not the Hortmans. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. You're so confident that the Hortmans, that wasn't political violence. That's a gray area or whatever he's going to say. Some stupid shit, right? You're doing the exact same thing that your guest is doing. This is why I'll never take Crowder seriously. I can't even understand how he has 5 million subscribers. But what that tells me, okay? What that tells me is that the people that watch him, they don't want to think. They don't want to live in reality either. They just want something that will comfort their own views. All this is furthering their agenda and making them feel comfortable and safe, which in my opinion is a thing a snowflake would do. They rail on the left for safe spaces and being snowflakes and feelings and pronouns and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, you don't even live in reality. Because the facts, the real facts, not the things you cherry pick, but the actual real reality hurts you so much that you're unwilling to engage with it. That makes you just as bad as the people you claim to be going against.
Thank you thinking about your question. Yeah, I mean, probably because he was like Turning Point USA is a conservative organization, right? That's meant to try and rally young conservatives and be involved. And so, yeah, I would probably agree that his death was political, or his murder, assassination was politically violent.
Very charitable right now, okay? And she's like, well, his death. And he's like, what, death? How can you say that? Yeah, he's dead. Death is a perfectly fine word to describe what happened. It doesn't mean she's not saying that it was an assassination or that it wasn't, right? This is what it's the conservatives that are the snowflakes. They can't even have a conversation because if you say a word they don't like, the death, what do you mean the death? Well, yeah, the person was alive. Now they're dead. That's accurate to describe what happened. It doesn't mean I'm not saying it wasn't an assassination, but in just shorthand conversation, it's fair to say, yeah, his death is tragic and it was in a political violence. She's being charitable, and he's still going, he's so... Crowder, you are so ruled by your emotions that you can't even have a conversation about basic reality. You are just as bad as the leftists that you claim are more violent than you, inaccurately, by the way, because none of the numbers support that.
But I guess I just have a hard time reconciling that with, we can say that the senator and her husband being killed wasn't political, but...
I'll tell you exactly why. I'll tell you exactly why. Because the express motive of the terrorist who assassinated Charlie Kirk was politics. He killed him because he said he's one of those hateful conservative right-wingers. The rhetoric that he espoused, the reason that he killed Charlie Kirk, was to take out someone of his political persuasion and make others of his political persuasion afraid to express their opinions. The man who assassinated, which I roundly condemn, Vance Bolter, the Hortmans, did not do it as a means to a political end. Charlie Kirk was assassinated. He is not an elected official, solely because of his political perspective as a method to instill terror in the populace.
Yeah.
How do I know? Because a person said it was political violence.
Okay, what if we just don't even have enough information, though? Like, what if it is politically motivated and we just don't have enough to know about it yet?
In that case, we do.
Well, not in this particular instance, but it just...
Okay. We have enough information for both sides. I just showed you the motive. Okay? And also, yes, I had to look this up because Crowder famously, the left is more violent. Meanwhile, he's literally abusing his wife, pregnant for 8 months pregnant wife, abusing her. I love it. But this is the motive. Here it is. His anti-abortion views were a possible motive. He wanted to kill every single leftist political person, right? He described Bolter as a conservative who voted for Donald Trump and who's strongly against abortion rights. He had a list of 70 people, including abortion providers, pro-abortion rights activists, and lawmakers in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and other states. That's motive. That's a politically motivated killing. Like, what are we doing here? Why are we not living in reality?
I mean, like, with the Hortmans you mentioned.
Okay, well, let's separate the gray area.
Okay.
Right? That's why I kind of start with the example. Just because you, I would assume, let's say, vote Democrat or Republican, just because you commit a crime doesn't make it political violence. I mean, if we did that, we'd have 90% of the crime being committed on behalf of the Democrat Party because most people in inner cities.
Because I need to fucking fact check this guy because all he does is lie.
Vote Democrat. I don't consider that to be political violence. People have political beliefs and people commit violence. Sometimes they rob a store because they want money. People who commit political violence do so specifically to instill fear in political opposition. They specifically commit violence as a means to a political end.
That is not the whole definition. I gotta find this. I have so many fucking tabs open. Political violence is violence perpetrated in order to achieve political goals. It can include violence which is used by the state against other states, violence which is used by state against civilians, non-state actors, violence which is used by non-state actors against states and civilians. It can also describe politically motivated violence used by violent non-state actors against the state, rebellion, rioting, treason, coup d'etat, assassinations. I'm telling you that's exactly what happened. His motive, pure and simple. 70 potential targets, including abortion providers, pro-abortion rights activists, and lawmakers in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and other states. That's exactly what he wanted. Okay? I don't understand how Crowder can't distinguish and say that was also an act of political violence. This is why you can never take anything seriously that they say, because they don't believe in it. They don't live in reality. They don't live in the same reality that I do.
Okay.
And when we categorize it that way, it's overwhelmingly coming from the left. We do have the sources here that we make this available, so you can take the QR code. So what would make you, because you seem very confident that the Hortmans was political violence, and then it's nuanced with Charlie Kirk. Why?
Oh, I didn't say it was nuanced at all. I just mean like with the Hortmans you mentioned.
Okay, well, let's separate the gray area.
Okay.
Right, that's why I kind of start with the example. Just because you, I would assume, let's say vote Democrat or Republican, just because you commit a crime doesn't make it political violence. I mean, if we did that, we'd have 90% of the crime being committed on behalf of the Democrat Party because most people in inner cities vote Democrat. I don't consider that to be political violence. People have political beliefs, and people commit violence. Sometimes they rob a store because they want money. People who commit political violence do so specifically to instill fear in political opposition. They specifically commit violence as a means to a political end.
Okay.
And when we categorize it that way, it's overwhelmingly coming from the left. We do have the sources here that we make this available, so you can take the QR code. So what would make you, because you seem very confident that the Hortmans was political violence, and then it's nuanced with Charlie Kirk. Why?
Oh, I didn't say it was nuanced at all with Charlie Kirk. I agreed with you after considering your question that it was a political.
If that doesn't constitute political violence that could be answered in the affirmative immediately, of course, what would? Like, what would be required to say, oh, this is clearly an act of political violence or political terrorism, if not Charlie Kirk?
I agreed that it was political violence, so I'm not sure where this question's coming from.
Well, I'm saying because you came in and pointed to an example that would be in the gray area, the Hortmans.
That is not a gray area. She's actually being, okay, this person's been really good. She's being very charitable right now. She's like, I'm not sure what you mean. I agree that the Charlie Kirk assassination was political. I'm not sure what this question is. She's right. He's trying to spin it in a way. She's agreeing with him. And he's still trying to spin it. How does anyone watch this guy? 1 million views since October 1st. You gotta be shitting me. How does anyone take Crowder seriously? He's a joke. He's barely an intellectual. He can't even live in the same reality. This person's being really charitable.
Yeah, and took a long time to agree with that premise of Charlie Kirk. And so what if we don't know enough information? So Charlie Kirk would be very clear left-wing political violence.
Yeah. Okay.
It's fair, by the way, to be like, hey, what if I don't know enough? What if we don't know enough information about the shooter and about the motive? What if we don't know? That's actually fair to ask. That's okay to ask that question. Okay? Because she's admitting, like, hey, like, what if we don't know enough about it to categorize it as that? Like, what? I don't know. But what she's doing, she's not very educated on the topic, okay? But what she's doing is saying, hey, it's okay if we don't have all the facts now to make a judgment about it, because later on we might have the facts. What they can't do, what conservatives can't do, is that they are unable to say, hey, we don't have all the facts currently, so we can't make a judgment about it yet. We can only speculate, maybe, but again, until we have all of the facts, I can't say what the motive is or why this thing happened. All they did with Melissa Hortman's assassination, right? All they did was immediately react and blame it on leftist violence. Because what that does is push their agenda further. It creates more divide. It gets their base ramped up, and it gets moderates who aren't educated or who don't care enough to look into things, acting purely on emotion. What they do is react without any of the facts. And she's asking, hey, well, what if we don't have the facts? Can we just take a breather and wait until we do? Then we can make an assessment? He's like, no, we can't do that. Of course we can't. We have to react now. We have to blame it on every single leftist. Fuck facts. When the facts don't support their claims, then they don't want to believe in them. The whole facts don't care about your feelings from Ben Shapiro. Yeah, you only care about the facts when they validate your feelings. That's the difference between you, Mr. Shapiro, or you, Crowder, and I. I live in a reality where I can accept all of the facts, even if I don't like them. That's the difference between a true thinker and a fraud. You are a fraud, Crowder.
Okay.
Sure.
Great.
Yes.
So there are more examples of that coming from the left than the right. That's the premise, yes.
Okay. So you're saying clear examples of political violence. I hear you using clear
violence carried out as a means to a political end.
So there's clear information, data that shows us that the left is violent or is more violent than the right.
Yes. Not only in crime statistics, but also in the polling after Charlie Kirk's death. Now, I believe that you're discussing this in good faith, and I would assume that you roundly condemn political violence of all stripes.
Of course.
So do I. Just to be
No, you don't. No, you don't. You're not condemning Hortman. You're saying it's a gray area. You're saying we don't really know. We do know. He was a famously Republican, Trump-supporting, anti-abortion advocate with a list of 70 names, including pro-choice people and institutions, people who, like, I'm telling you right now, I just literally read that 70, including abortion providers, pro-abortion rights advocates, lawmakers, like, that was famously political. Again, he's not living in reality. He's living in his little fairy tale land where he's the hero and everybody on the left is the enemy. Meanwhile, he's the one that was like violent and abusive to his wife, by the way. And I'm not making that up. That happened in real life.
be clear, I think we both are. That's why we're sitting at a table having a conversation.
Right.
Do you identify as more liberal or conservative?
I am.
Why would the Department of Justice quietly remove a study from their website showing that far-right extremists were responsible for the bulk of ideologically motivated deaths, a move that comes as the GOP seeks to back claims from President Trump that the radical left poses a great danger than the right wing? Why would the DOJ remove that study? Why would they do that? Conservatives, can you sit there? Can you answer me why a Trump Department of Justice, a Trump administration Department of Justice, would remove a study that proves that the majority of the violence, the ideologically motivated deaths, comes from the far right? Why would they remove that? They're trying to hide something, right? It's a real study, proven, real science, reputable. Why would they remove it? Here we go. The 2024 study in which criminal justice researchers reviewed National Institute of the Justice data found far more instances of deaths credited to right-wing groups. The study was still available in the Department of Justice website last week, but a researcher on extremism posted on social media that had been removed in the days after the killing of right-wing activist Charlie Kirk. Wow. So in the days after Kirk was murdered, assassinated. See, I'm saying that. I'm actually living in reality. I can say that he was assassinated. Politically motivated, right? Why would they remove that study? The study says the number of far-right attacks continue to outpace all types of terrorism and domestic violent extremism. Since the 90s, since 1990, far-right extremists have committed far more ideologically motivated homicides than far-left or radical Islamist extremists. By the way, the right loves railing against radical Islam. They love it. They love blaming everything on radical Islam, but they can't even admit that the majority of the violence comes from their own side. What a bunch of hypocrites. 227 events that took more than 520 lives since 1990. In that same period, far-left extremists committed 42 ideologically motivated to 78. So we're talking 227 to 42 and 520 to 78. That's real. The removal of the study was reported Tuesday by 404 Media, which credited Daniel Malmer, a PhD student at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, who's studying extremism, with first noting the removal of the study. Wow. We have a PhD student who's like, wait a minute here. Why is the study gone? His whole career, his whole educational background, his life is studying extremism. He's like, wait a minute. That's a very important study. Where the fuck did it go? This guy's a hero, by the way, for saying something about that. What did he post? In a post, the study had not been visible the day before. The DOJ did not respond to a request or comment for the removal of the study, but the page now says the department is reviewing its websites in accordance with executive orders. Of course it is, because Trump's trying to hide history. The fact that conservatives can't even see that, it tells me either they're stupid or they're just afraid. And if you conservatives are truly afraid of Trump, then you have no business calling liberals or leftists cowards or snowflakes, because you guys, you're the ones that are scared. You're the ones that are pathetic. How you cannot be the party of free speech. The First Amendment, freedom of the press, right? You cannot be the party of free speech when you support an administration and a Justice Department that removes information, that takes facts away so that you cannot educate yourselves. That is not free speech. That is fascism. Ben & Jerry's co-founder quits, says company lost independence. If you took the problem is on the left, it's not on the right. Some people like to say the far right. The problem we have is on the left. Trump told supporters Sunday. And when you look at the agitator, you look at the scum that speaks so badly of our country, American flag burnings all over the place. That's the left, not the right. No offense, Mr. Trump, Mr. President. Fuck you. Flag burning, although I don't agree with it, I won't burn the American flag. I serve my country. I love my country. Flag burning is protected speech. You absolute imbecile. The claim is countered by numerous studies, including the one removed by DOJ. Yeah, of course. And the FBI in recent years has warned the risks of domestic violence, including those motivated beliefs and fraud related to racial, ethnic prejudice, and even COVID-19. Wow. Other studies have backed the conclusion that murders by the far right are more frequent than perpetrators by the left. Of course. All the information, the fact that the DOJ removed that study should prove to every Crowder supporter that he's wrong, that the violence comes from the far right. To my conservative neighbors out there, you cannot claim that you love this country and that you live in reality when the people that you support, when you participate in this type of lie. You cannot claim to be American when you refuse to live in reality. A study by the Cato Institute, a libertarian group, found that since 2020, right-wing extremists were responsible for more than half of all politically motivated deaths, 44, while leftists were only responsible for 22%, a total of 18, 44 to 18. The evidence is overwhelming that it comes from the far right.
I mean, I like to think I'm moderate because I hold some conservative views and some liberal views, and I wish we could have a little bit more moderation in our country.
Like sitting down and having discussions.
Exactly. Like things like this.
Because we get killed for it anyway.
Right. Yeah.
And only the right. Only the right gets killed for this anyway. You're seeing the one that got through.
Only the right gets killed. What about Melissa Hortman? What about that list of 70 names of people who are pro-abortion, lawmakers, advocates? Those were people that Vance Walter wanted to kill for their beliefs, their political agendas. The right doesn't get killed more. They're responsible for most of the violence, and the numbers don't lie. I don't know how many times I have to say this. It's because they don't listen. It's because Crowder lives in this fantasy. You guys will support militias at state capitals. You Second Amendment solutions. Good guys with a gun. You praise Kyle Rittenhouse. He was an American hero. Book deals and podcast appearances. But we're more violent. The left is more violent. You're kidding me, right? When all the numbers say that you're wrong.
The reason I stopped doing this for years is because every single time out was a violent attack. Sometimes it was a rock. Sometimes it was a milkshake, could be concrete acid.
What about Breonna Taylor, George Floyd? Police brutality, that's part of the real definition, not your economist bullshit publication definition, which, by the way, is not a definition. It's literally the scope of a project. It's describing what the project is doing. Every single time a police officer killed a black person, okay, that's all political violence. Police brutality falls, as I will show you again, because Crowder supporters and where's that? Here we go. Crowder supporters and people that support the right in general don't live in reality. So I have to spell everything out like I'm a kindergarten teacher. Here we go. Police brutality, targeted killings, torture, ethnic cleansing. This is a huge one right here. Targeted killings. What about Ahmaud Arbery? He wasn't murdered by police, but he was murdered by 3 white guys in a pickup. Were they chasing after him? That's political violence. The right isn't getting killed in droves. It's the left. But here's the thing. I genuinely believe, in my humble opinion, that Crowder and his people that support Crowder, like his team, or Ben Shapiro, or Matt Walsh, I think they like when leftists get murdered. I think they like when Democrats are losing people. I think they enjoy it. They love violence. They're the Second Amendment people. They're the pro-military. I served my country for 6 fucking years, by the way. And all these people like Crowder, Matt Walsh, Shapiro, too scared to walk into an enlistment office. And they love violence. They love it. They can't even admit that George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, acts of political violence. What happened to, what about Emmett Till? Wasn't that an act of political violence? Emmett Till, right? Here we go. I'm misspelling all, whatever. Emmett Till, abducted and lynched after being accused of offending a white woman. What do you think that is? A targeted killing? An assassination? Torture? That's real political violence. It's been happening to the left for a long time. Conservatives can't wait to put on a white hood and hunt down a black person. Were there 2 lynchings recently? Like within the last month? Hold on a second. Lynching. I can't spell. Lynchings in 2025. Yeah, Mississippi, right? A black man's death in Mississippi strikes a nation's raw nerves. Wow. The authorities saying he took his own life? I'm sorry. When's the last time a black person hanged themselves? We're really going to see? We're really going to wonder if it's suicide? Of course, the cops, Mississippi officials officially rule that's a suicide because they probably murdered him, or they're covering it up for someone. It's not against the right. The right, I will say this, in my opinion, I think the right, whether it's coordinated or uncoordinated, far-right extremism is killing liberals and Democrats and anyone that is not on their side, or anyone who doesn't look like them. Why would he hang himself? Not even a month into college. Are you kidding me? Somebody killed him, and they're covering it up. And I will say this with my fucking face, and my name, my public identity, that whoever in Mississippi did this to him, whether it's the police or a rich kid that went to that school who's connected, somebody murdered him, and they're covering it up. The left is violent. Give me a fucking break, Crowder. I'll go on your show next week and say to your face, in a real debate, I'll do it over a Zoom call, I don't care, your side is more violent. And all of the numbers, all of the stats, all of the stories and the reports back it up. You and your people, you enjoy it, and you're getting away with it. I'm sick of this false narrative that they're pushing out. The right, and every study supports it, even the one that Department of Justice, hello, Trump's administration, right now, took it off their website. Hi, DOJ. You guys are cowards. You realize that the reality is that the far-right extremists are killing everyone else. You realize that the reality is that they are more violent, which is why you took that down. Because Trump probably pressured you, and you guys are weak. That's the truth. We live in a country run by cowardly people on the right who refuse to acknowledge that their side is the most violent. Their side, their beliefs, not ours. Black people don't just lynch themselves. They don't.
Acid chocolate vanilla, I don't know. Doxing, fire bombings, Molotov cocktails. Maya Angelou spoke at SMU only a few years before my first time here, didn't need this kind of security. And you can see it if you observe your speakers here. And I'll tell you why that is. If you look at the polls post-assassination of Charlie Kirk, and you label yourself as a moderate, those who identify as liberal support political violence at a ratio of 6-1 to conservatives. The YouGov poll said, is political violence acceptable? 77% of conservatives said not at all. Only 38% of those on the left said not at all. 62% of those on the left said somewhat to completely acceptable. We see the same stats after the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. We see the same stats after the fire bombings of the Tesla dealership.
I can't spell. Whatever. I can't spell. All right. Trump assassination suspects. Let's look this up, okay? Trump, the former Crooks. Thomas Matthew Crooks. Crooks searched for images and public appearances of Trump, Biden, Merrick Garland, Christopher Wray, Catherine, and Princess of Wales. What the fuck did she do? What the fuck did Catherine do? As well as information regarding the Republican National Convention and Democratic National Convention, he also searched the internet for information major events toward Oxford High School shooting, with authorities finding an arrest photograph of Oxford shooter Ethan Crumbley on his phone. This guy was a lonely person that glorified. I'm not saying it was right. This is evil. I don't want my president, even though Trump, I don't like him. He's a coward. He's a liar and a criminal, a scumbag, and probably a pedophile because he's close friends with Epstein. I don't want my presidents getting assassinated. I don't like that. I can hate the guy and still not want him to die. I don't want our country to be that. He cycled through news sites, CNN and Fox News, New York Times, before visiting the Trump administration archives. He then visited 7 gun websites, one focused on Air 15. Much of his online activity was because he used a VPN. God, okay. Wow, I feel editor can be used in explosive, giving his home address for delivery. The package did not arrive promptly, and he sent an email asking what happened to the package. Okay. Quick search how far Oswald was from Kennedy. Oh my god, oh my god. He has something important to do. Okay, what's his motive? I'll say Matthew Crook's motive. Okay, remains a mystery. Not get unidentified. It's funny. Do you like how that it remains a mystery? This is a clear example of an attack on a Republican person, our president, Trump, and it's a mystery. The FBI can't figure it out. Seriously, the FBI can remove studies about extremist violence, and every single right-leaning source, Crowder, news personality, media personality, can blame the left, blame everything on the left, but they can't figure this out. My guess is, and I said this time and time again, especially after the Charlie Kirk shooting, that every time there's an act of violence, you can trace it back to mental health. And the fact that most of the violence comes from the far right, it tells me, is there something going on with my right-leaning neighbors? Are they more angry? Are they unable to identify with reality? Are they isolated? Are they violent? Why are they more often radicalized than people on the left? Desire for notoriety. That's every single shooter. They all want to be famous. They all want their name and face all over the news. They always have personal grievances. They're incels. But why is it that most of them come from the far right? That's the real question. It's wrong that Trump was almost killed. It sucks. It's evil. But every time there's an attack, it's always someone with far right-leaning views. It's always a weird manifesto. This is insane. Who's the one? Who's the other one? Trump golf course assassination. Ryan Ruth. Okay. Ryan Ruth motive. Let's look this up. It's easy. Jerusalem Post. I won't go to AP. Okay. He tried to stab himself in the neck with a pen. All right. Fucking psychopath. He called himself a self-styled mercenary leader trying to recruit soldiers. Wow, sounds kind of like a militia guy. Sounds like a far-right militia Second Amendment lover, right? Kind of sounds like that. What we know about him. North Carolina construction worker. Spent time in Ukraine. He said he was trying to recruit foreign soldiers, including Afghans, saying to fight the Russians. What the fuck? Posted online showing tactical vest holding a sign for Ukraine. Okay. What was Rose's motive? He described the Republican leader as a buffoon and fool in reference to the riot at the U.S. Capitol. Okay. What they're gonna do, what they've already done, is use this as an example of it's the left trying to kill us. This guy sounds like a psychopath. He's not a leftist. Yikes. Despite this guy, here's what this is. This guy's lonely. He's damaged. He's isolated. He's angry. He's unable to live in reality. That's not the left or the right. We have a mental health problem in this country. He threatened to burn down a music studio that offended him. He had a plot to assassinate Putin. That's insane, dude. Fucking crazy, dude. Wow. Here's the thing. I'm willing to give conservatives those two examples. Okay, I am. But the numbers are overwhelming that most of the violence comes from the far right. I'm willing. Although here's the thing, though. Nothing about these guys says they're leftist extremists. I mean, other than a disdain for Trump. But then why would Thomas Crooks or whatever also want to know about Biden's travel schedule or the Princess of Wales, right? Catherine or whatever. Why would he want that? Okay, that's not leftist. He wanted to kill Biden. You know, like that's what I'm saying. Like, fine, I'll give conservatives these two examples. These are yours to say that the left is more violent, but the numbers still overwhelmingly say it comes from the right. And it's not even close.
And we see the same stats on the opposite side, those on the right roundly condemning political violence. The lowest you'll find is 72. You usually find it in the high 80s. You will not find a number that breaks half on the left.
Okay, you mentioned Donald Trump. Can we jump to that for just a minute?
Donald Trump, sure. I assumed we would.
Well, because I thought that guy was a registered Republican, and then he donated, the guy who attempted to assassinate Donald Trump. I'm sorry, I'm really terrible at names.
Oh, Crooks.
Yeah, that he was a registered Republican. So would you consider him a act of violence on the left or on the right?
I would consider the attempted assassination of a presidential nominee political violence, yes.
Yes.
I don't know if you know this, there are a lot of people on the right who don't like Donald Trump.
Yes, I do know a few of them. Yeah.
Political violence isn't just Republican-Democrat. That's why I say left versus right.
Okay.
Those on the right are more routinely targets, and it's very blatant. People can say he was a registered Republican. That doesn't change the fact that it was an act of political violence carried out against Donald Trump, who's a conservative.
The political violence definition that I showed you, that's from Wikipedia, and you can trust Wikipedia. It's not this conspiracy, okay? It's a pretty good source, okay? It includes police brutality, targeted killing. So every single time a United States police officer or just regular U.S. citizens killed a black person, Emmett Till, tortured, lynched, killed him for offending a white woman. Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, Trayvon Martin, every single time, whether it was police brutality or a civilian of going crazy, those are all things. Those are targeted killings. And they're always from people with right-leaning views. I've already showed you the statistics. In fact, I'm so confident in this, I will go on record and say it's more so far-right extremism because the DOJ themselves, under Trump's rule, removed this study proving that. I can keep repeating these facts until I'm blue in the face, but the fact of the matter is Crowder does not live in reality.
Yes.
Republican, whatever term you want to use.
Well, I guess, but if the argument is the left is violent, and I'm just thinking about this guy's, political background from the person. I hear what you're saying, that the right is targeted more often.
Yeah, we're the victims of political violence.
More often, and
much more.
So, would you classify that specific incident as violence of the right or of the left?
Well, the target is the right. The target was Donald Trump. So the net result is the same. We are often the targets of violence.
He wanted Biden's schedule and the Princess of fucking Wales, right? Or Catherine or some princess. Like, what? Why?
Yeah, but
not that simple. But he's cherry picking only what focus. Okay, Trump was a target. Meanwhile, he wanted to go after Biden too. He's not living in reality. But I'll be charitable. You conservatives, you can have Crooks and Ryan Ralph. You can have those two. And I'll even let you claim that they're leftists, even though they're not. Even though Crooks wanted to go after Biden and the princess. Like it's not as simple as that. But I'll give you those two because the numbers still hilariously and overwhelmingly support my claim. And the fact that I'll always circle back to this, the fact that the DOJ removed the study is proof positive that they see it too, but they will not do anything to offend Trump because for some reason they're all afraid of him. You conservatives are honestly some of the biggest cowards in all of human history.
Including someone who may be a moderate Republican. Yeah, the left is still overwhelmingly violent. And I point to those.
She's doing great, but she's not pushing back hard enough. She's not. She's being really charitable, trying to have a real conversation, but she's not willing to push him a bit because he is steamrolling her, getting her to agree and concede. All this, my problem with my fellow liberals or my people on the left is all you guys do is just concede and concede and concede. You try to be so charitable when they will tell you to your face. The Melissa Hortman thing is a gray area. I'm not going to be fucking charitable to you. My name is Steven Crowder. I yell at my 8-month pregnant wife and make her feel like shit and abuse her because I can't regulate my own emotions. All right, let's move on. Don't be charitable to people. They're not being charitable with you. All right, let's move on.
From the left, setting a tenor and tone where everything you see here today is necessary. And if you disagree with that, you're more than welcome to change my mind.
Yeah.
All right. So, which part of that, the left is predominantly responsible for the tone of political violence?
Like him, by the way, we'll never have a conversation with a guy like me. I've tried having conversations on LinkedIn with people. I've tried, and I've shown real facts, studies, real articles, links, proving my points, and I get blocked. I get gaslit. Conservatives are the most cowardly people on the planet. They don't live in reality. They want to cherry pick and lie and deflect. He will always go after a college student or someone he can overpower and steamroll, but he will never go up against someone like me. They'll never do that. They manufacture these conversations to give themselves more views and to make money. It's not about conversations. It's a business. It's a racket. Not a very respectable one.
Today, do you disagree with?
Well, I have to think that we first have to consider how many people are on the left and what is the true ideology and mythos behind this new occurrence of violence that we see with the left.
Okay.
Of course, I mean, there's potential skews of media. I don't doubt that crime is not happening, but how many people are truly committing crime out of the sake of leftism or out of the sake of radicalism, or could it be plastered on there just to get this ball rolling about narrative?
Okay, she's not wrong, although the stats currently exist that prove that violence comes from the far right way more, so she should know that. If you're going to have a conversation with someone like him, please do the fucking research first. And I'm not trying to bash this person. She's got balls for showing up to this. I'm just saying, do the research. However, she's also mentioning that, hey, are we not sure that like the narrative is being pushed in a way to make us think that it's happening in this way? I can accuse the right of using Charlie Kirk's death as political football to get themselves more points and push their agenda forward. And literally, The Guardian reported how the far right tried to unfairly name the assassination of Melissa Hortman as this leftist thing, even though it wasn't that. Before they had all the facts, they tried to link it right here. Where is the? Here we go. The Guardian. I said this earlier in the video. The latest example of a right-wing media ecosystem that swiftly spins up narratives and certainly political journalists regardless of accuracy and does not correct them after further information shows them to be untrue and complete. That's what they do. The right-wing media ecosystem, which Crowder is a part of, that's what they do. Before they have any of the facts, they latch onto it and they make it fit their narrative. And she's pretty good for calling this out. This is really good on her part for saying that.
The only other question that I had, a personal question about you, is, and it's a tough one.
Well, is it related to the topic?
It is.
Okay.
Would Jesus be on the left or the right?
Well, that's a conversation for another day. We talk about that in church quite a bit. I don't necessarily know that he would fit within the current American left-right paradigm. But I will tell you one thing. Jesus would certainly be against political violence as a form of...
Yes, and he would be 100% against people like you trying to skew this thing and trying to make it a left responsibility. He would be like, wait a minute here, if Jesus were alive today. He'd be like, wait a minute, all the numbers from these organizations, they all say that most of it comes from far right extremism. Most school shooters are angry white incels, white boys, little angry white skinny pencil neck white boys. Columbine is a famous example of two angry skinny pencil neck white boys. If Jesus were alive today, he would be like, well, Mr. Crowder, as the Son of God, most of the violence comes from the far right. I think what we need to focus on is not left and right, but we have a severe mental health issue in this country. So maybe we can all agree that we should stop talking about left versus right because there's no evidence that suggests it comes from the left. But the bigger conversation we should all be having is that we have a mental health problem and we have a gun access problem. Jesus would not be far right or blaming the left. These people call themselves Christians, but they don't understand that Jesus was the biggest. He was the biggest. What was the word? It wasn't passive. He was the biggest pacifist. He wouldn't want war between two sides. He wouldn't want the right to be blaming the left, A, because it's inaccurate, and B, that's not the point of this conversation. If we want violence to stop, we have to address the real problem. Mental health and ease of access to firearms. It should not be easy for an incel to get his hands on an AR-15. A mentally unstable teenager or mentally unstable 20-something-year-old incel. It should not be that easy. They should have jump through a lot of hoops and prove that they are mentally fit to handle a firearm. But the right doesn't want to have a conversation about gun control. They want to be the Wild fucking West. They want to be able to just walk in, buy one, and leave. They don't want gun laws. They don't want that.
Intimidation or coercion. It seems to me like, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're not disagreeing with the idea, the uptick that there is an increase in political violence from the quote-unquote left. You're just not sure if you define them as left?
Partially, yeah. I just don't necessarily want to just assign political violence or terrorism directly to the left, because we see political violence across the world in forms of autocratic or conservative ideologies. So maybe China is a really good example. Arguably Russia,
of leftist violence?
Of leftist violence, especially. Or, well, no, autocratic and conservative violence.
China would be conservative?
I would believe so, because they're an autocracy. So they have to practice conservative ideologies to obtain, they can't liberate their people. That's what the left is. That's what liberation is.
Well, I don't know how familiar you are with the CCP, but they're communist. And they did so under the guise of liberating people. And then, of course, you don't actually have any democratically held elections again. So they are communist. They've done so to liberate people, namely from the decadence, the quote-unquote shackles of the Western world. I'm just a little bit, I guess, flummoxed as to how you would define communist China, the Communist Chinese Party, as right-wing.
Well, because when Marx wrote his communist ideologies, it was conservative-based. He didn't enjoy other people, races. He wanted to eliminate races.
What does it have to do with conservatism?
It has to do with human rights, because conservatives...
Here's okay. I don't know everything. I don't know everything, okay? I looked it up. The CCP has undergone ideological shifts over time. Initially leftist forced, it has transitioned to a right-wing authoritarian nationalist ideology in recent years, particularly during the capitalist period. However, some perspectives argue that the CCP remains left-wing characters due to central planning and control over the economy. Thus, CCP's political alignment can be seen as complex and context-dependent. Okay, I'm willing to agree with that. It's an interesting conversation.
Isn't looking to liberate people from or define human rights. It's looking to remove human rights, conserving the beliefs of the state and conserving the beliefs of elitism.
Okay, so what if your premise is flawed? So what if conservatism, and I understand, by the way, I agree with you, it means different things across. For example, conservative in the UK. In Canada, you're basically a liberal or a liberal separatist. There's no real conservative party. But in the United States, it's not about conserving the state. As a matter of fact, our Constitution is very unique in that it said the state doesn't grant any rights. So it's preserving the Constitution where you are granted unalienable rights, meaning birthrights, by God. And the state only serves to recognize those rights and protect them. And so if the state ever infringes upon the rights that are naturally yours by birthright...
But who assigned natural rights?
Well, that's again, the founding fathers would be conservative. But natural rights being...
Republican?
Okay, you know what? This is too out of the scope. We're not talking about this conversation regarding the left is violent because it relates to what China or the rest of the world is doing. I don't care. I don't give a shit, and no one should in this country, what the rest of the world is doing when we're having this conversation. In America, the far right, okay, far right extremism is responsible for most of the political violence. That's what matters. And we're talking about China, and she doesn't know anything about it. I can tell. She knows a little bit about it. He probably knows a little more than that. We're getting too out of scope. It doesn't matter for this conversation. His claim, the left is violent. We should focus on that. Because in America, the stats don't support that. I don't like how like the China thing is involved in trying to frame here. It doesn't matter what they're doing. It doesn't for this conversation. I wish these people would be a little stronger and like, you know what? I think we would be better off talking about this topic specifically in the context of our borders as Americans. Because right now, all of the political violence in America, like most of it, like 85% of it, can be attributed to far-right extremism. And I'm not making that up. Those are real stats. That's so real. In fact, the DOJ took it off their fucking website. They removed the study.
Well, this was before the Republican Party.
Am I correct?
This is the Republican Party.
Yeah.
But I'm just confused. So you would say that communist China, conservative.
I would say it's autocracy that uses conservative.
Okay. But how is that conservative? For example, you say doing away with races. How is that conservative?
It conserves their power over the state or over the nation.
So you believe that conservatives want the state to have more power?
I think that we define conservative beliefs by our Republican values. But conservatism across the globe looks very different.
Okay. Well, I agree that different parties, because there's also the conservative.
Because China, ruled by the CCP, right? They don't believe in free enterprise like we do. Private enterprise, okay? They are more central planning. The CCP controls the economy, armed forces. That is that's more economically left wing, okay? But again, admitting that, I guess, doesn't have anything to do with this conversation. I don't know why we're talking about this. Why the fuck are we talking about this? What is wrong with liberals right now? What is the deal with liberals? Like Seinfeld. What is the deal with airplane food? No, what is the deal with liberals? They go onto these formats and they just completely talk about whatever the fuck comes to mind. They don't focus on the topic. He's giving you so many reasons to completely dunk and destroy his argument, and you're talking about China? Oh, good lord.
Conservative Party, for example, whereas here at the Republican Party, we're talking about conservatism in the United States. It seems to me that your presupposition is that conservatives, Republicans want more state control, want more government power, as opposed to the Democrat Party, liberals. Okay, that would apply over health care, what you can eat, what you can drive, taxes. They're more left, they're more liberal, more open-minded on the left with those policies. Okay, I would just disagree with that, considering if you just look at marginal tax rates and you look at gun policy, you look at speech policy, you look at energy policy, what you can drive. But going back to political violence, you said you wouldn't want to ascribe the uptick that we both recognize, political violence to the left. What would be required for it to be ascribed to the left? What if they said it was? Like, what if someone's...
I would say, I'm looking at this globally.
Well, let's talk about here in the United States, because that's what we're discussing.
Bad person. Stop. Bopping you on the head right now. Stop doing that. Don't make it about global. Make it about our country, this country. That's what the topic is. The left is violent. That's what matters. I don't care about China. I don't care about global. I don't care about that. It doesn't matter. Our country has a mental health problem and a gun access problem. And for some reason, we have to figure this out. And maybe it is related to mental health. For some reason, most of the political violence, like 85% of it, comes from far-right extremism. Since the 90s, we can see that. We have numbers. It's so real and it's so true and so factual that the DOJ tried to deny it. Removed the study off their website. Meanwhile, the studies are still public. You can still look at everything else, But I'm just saying, why are we doing this?
Yeah. What I'm asking you is, what would be required if someone were to commit an act of political violence and you consider it on the left? What if they said it's because they're on the left? Would that count?
I would say so, no.
Even if there was one, I'm okay. Look, I'm charitable. I'm so charitable. Oh my God. You can have Trump's Crooks and Ralph. You can have those two. I'm willing to say that those are crazy ideological leftists or whatever you want to call them, even though Crooks wanted to go after Biden and like a princess too. It's not just Trump. But I'm willing to give you those two. You can have those two. Even with those two, the numbers are still overwhelmingly showing that the right does it more. Like what?
I think if somebody's doing an act in towards the left, what side of the left and why? Because what we refer to as the left.
Okay. Planned Parenthood bombing. Okay. Anti-abortion violence. When was the last time a left-leaning group or person bombed a right-leaning place? That church shooting, synagogue shooting, far-right extremist. Okay? That 9 black parishioners murdered by a white kid. Come on. And I thought Christians were under attack in this country. Not Christians, black people. It's very true. I mean, all the police brutality is proof that the right does more violence. Anti-abortion violence is violence committed against individuals and organizations who perform abortion and provide abortion counseling. That's right-leaning violence. The only people in this country that don't believe in abortion are right-leaning extremists, people that are on the right. Like I can't find an example. It's hard to find an example of left-leaning violence. It really is. It is. But I will look it up. I will show examples of left-leaning violence, okay, in the U.S. Well, you have to just look it up. Just look things up. I want to look at left-wing terrorism. Yeah, the anti. Are they really contributing in that? Hold on. 3 Muslim men shoot youth baseball. That's not really less violence. It could be radical Islam. I don't know what we know about political violence in America. Here we go. Fact check that over, okay? What have studies found? Researchers who studied extremism and political violence use different criteria for measuring prevalence. Some include riots and police response to them. Some measure the ideology of the perpetrator, and others count the ideology at the target. It's hard to compare the findings, and there's been very little published research since Trump took office earlier this year. Yeah, because the DOJ is removing studies, and Trump's having executive orders to change things on their website. Like, I mean, he's clearly hiding things right now. I wonder why there's very few studies. I wonder why. The most recent data comes from the CSIS brief, which measured necessary from the beginning of 2025 through July 4th, when an armed group attacked an ICE facility in Alvarado, Texas. It found that there had been a steep decline in right-wing incidents. There was one in that time frame which killed 2 people, and an increase in left-wing incidents. There were 5 in that time frame which killed nobody. The data did not include Kirk's death. Indeed, left-wing violence has risen over the past 10 years, particularly since President Trump's rise to political prominence in 2016. Although it has risen from very low levels, remains much lower than historical levels of violence carried out by right-wing and jihadist attackers. I can admit that since Trump took office in 2016, there has been a marginal rise of left-wing violence, but the numbers don't suggest that there's still more than right-wing. Right here, it remains much lower than historical levels of violence carried out by right-wing and jihadist attackers. More contentious politics in the United States and the expansions of Make America Great Again, MAGA, appear to have re-energized violent left-wing extremists. That right there, to me, is proof that since Trump took office the first time, he and his people have increased the temperature. They have created an environment where political violence is more prevalent, where the violent rhetoric is more prevalent and more common. The rise in left-wing attacks merits increased attention, but the fall in right-wing attacks is probably temporary, and 2 requires a government response. In any case, many of the prescriptions for fighting terrorism effectively apply to violence from both left and right. These ensure propping counterterrorism resourcing, avoiding overreaction, having leadership unequivocally condemn attacks. To counteract this, we need leadership to unequivocally condemn attacks. We need leadership, whether it's political figures on the right, like politicians, or people like Steven Crowder, who are leaders in their community, they're right-wing media figures, to condemn both sides. Not just say that Melissa Hortman's was a gray area, but the left is much more violent because they killed Kirk. They're killing us in droves. We're not killing you in droves. What the fuck's wrong with you? The numbers don't support that. The CSIS defines left-wing terrorism as violence motivated by opposition to capitalism, imperialism, and colonialism, black nationalism, support for LGBTQ rights, support for environmental causes such as animal rights, which we talked about earlier, as well as the belief, adherence to pro-communist, pro-socialist, and anti-fascist rhetoric, as well as belief that the government causes social injustices and support for anarchism and partisan extremism. The term right-wing terrorism pertains to violence motivated by ideas of racial ethnic supremacy, which you guys do all the time. You guys always talk about replacement theory. You guys are always doing that. He talked about that too, by the way. Motivated by ideas of racial ethnic supremacy, opposition to government authority, believing it is tyrannical and illegitimate, like denying the election in 2020, believing it was tyrannical and illegitimate, and he didn't win, and it was an attempt to steal Trump's victory. Come on. Misogyny, including incels. Wow, incels. Hatred based on sexuality or gender identity. Belief that QAnon conspiracy about opposition to abortion. The guy that killed Melissa Hortman. And partisan extremism. CIS and other researchers of political violence also concluded that 2025, notwithstanding, political violence has largely been driven by right-wing extremism. Yeah, 2025, notwithstanding, it's still driven by right-wing extremism. Even though there's been a marginal increase in left-wing extremism lately, it's still not even enough. It's not even close to the historical levels. Not even close. A 2024 National Institute of Justice report found that the number of far-right attacks continues to outpace all other types of terrorism and domestic violent extremism. The DOJ removed the study from its website on September 12th, as I've talked about a million times now. According to snapshots captured by the Internet Archive, the department spokeswoman did not comment on when we asked why. Of course not, because the department spokeswoman for the DOJ and the DOJ in general are all cowardly. They're all full of people with no integrity and no spine and no courage. None. The report found that congressionally mandated reports of the FBI and Department of Homeland Security have assessed domestic terrorism since 2017 has said every year so far that white supremacists have had the most lethal threat of domestic terror. The most recent report was issued in 2023 and covered data from the prior year. Similarly, in 2020, CSIS reported that based on CSIS data of terrorist incidents, the most significant threat comes from white supremacists, though anarchists and religious extremists were inspired by the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda could also represent a potential threat as well. So most of it comes from white supremacists and from white supremacists and far-right people, though anarchists and religious extremists from the Islamic State or Al-Qaeda could also be a potential threat. So most of it comes from the far right, and others can be from Islam, radical Islam, and Al-Qaeda. It's real. These are real numbers here. Anyway, look, I can watch the rest of this and keep repeating myself, but I think I've hit it on the head. Steven Crowder, you're a coward. You cherry pick things. You don't actually have conversations with people who know what they're talking about. You don't have any conversations with anybody that can push back against you. All you do is punch down. And it's the same thing Kirk did. Did he deserve to die for it? No. Am I saddened by it? Yes. We should not be killing each other for having different beliefs. But to sit there and say the left is more violent, I have proven you wrong unequivocally. All the numbers say it. And the biggest proof that I have on my side, the biggest piece of evidence is the fact that the DOJ couldn't even comment when they took a study down. Oh, okay. The DOJ. Oh, okay, did it again. The DOJ couldn't even comment when they removed the study proving that it comes from the far right. Crowder, I hereby cancel you for being a liar and a coward. The left is violent, huh? Wow, maybe you should ask your pregnant wife when you were being violent and abusive towards her. This is what the conservatives do. All they do is care about pushing their narrative forward. They don't want to live in reality. They don't care what the facts say. It's all reactions and emotions and anger and fear-mongering. That's all they do, and that's all they've ever done for a very long time now. And all Trump has done since 2016 is turn up the temperature to new heights. Everyone should say what I'm about to say right now. Political violence is wrong. I am sad that Charlie Kirk was murdered. He didn't deserve to die. I wish he were alive today so I could still talk to him and interact and have debates with a guy like him. I am sad that he was murdered, but I am under no illusion that it was left-wing violence. The majority of the violence comes from the right. And you cannot sit there and condemn Charlie Kirk's death and assassination and then call Melissa Hortman and her husband a gray area. But we really don't know what it was. It was politically motivated. You cannot condemn one thing if you're unwilling to condemn the other side. Anyway, I'm Scott Scully. Like, share, subscribe, comment, and thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later.